Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a seriously mind-bending premise. I want you to imagine taking a group of Buddhist monks from 1500 years ago and putting them in a room with a panel of today's leading cognitive scientists. They don't share a language, they don't share a culture, and they're separated by over a millennium. Yet, when you ask both groups how the human mind actually works, they hand you the exact same answer. Today, we're exploring the absolutely astonishing parallels between classical Yogācāra philosophy and modern Bayesian neuroscience. These are two completely different frameworks that have both come to the exact same conclusion. The reality you are experiencing right now is essentially an illusion.
So let me ask you a really direct question. Are you actually seeing reality? Right now, as you're looking at your screen, as you're listening to my voice, as you're feeling the temperature of the room around you, do you think you're just passively taking in the objective truth of the world? Well, what if everything you're experiencing in this exact second is completely constructed?
Okay, let's dive into this. We all kind of grow up with this camera model in our heads, right? It's the myth that your brain just passively records reality exactly as it exists out there, like a video camera. But modern science has completely thrown that idea out the window. Instead, we have the predictive model. Your brain is definitely not a camera. It is literally a construction site. It grabs a few tiny sensory clues and rapidly builds a model of what it thinks is out there. It's actively generating your entire perception from the inside out.
Section 1. Ancient monks, modern brains. Converging paradigms.
All right, let's meet the two radically different sets of investigators who actually managed to solve this mystery of the mind. First up, we have classical Yogācāra, which literally translates to the practice of yoga. This is a major school of Mahāyāna Buddhism that developed a wildly sophisticated theory of mind over 1,500 years ago. Now, it's really important to note that these ancient philosophers were not saying the physical world doesn't exist. Not at all. Instead, they argued that our experienced world is completely inseparable from the cognitive processes used to perceive it. Basically, your mind conditions everything you see. It's the ultimate reality filter.
And jumping forward to today, we have our modern counterpart, the Bayesian brain hypothesis. This is cutting-edge cognitive science. The Bayesian framework basically states that your brain continuously combines incoming sensory information with your prior expectations to generate the most probable interpretation of reality. Just like those ancient monks, neuroscientists today are telling us that what we perceive is just a best prediction. Honestly, your brain is functioning like a highly advanced and sometimes flawed visual autocorrect.
Section 2. Seeds and Bayesian priors, the architecture of perception. Now, what's really interesting about this is how exactly it works under the hood. In Yogācāra, ordinary perception is heavily conditioned by conceptual construction and latent dispositions. But where do those come from? Well, they are stored in the ālaya-vijñāna, or the storehouse consciousness. Think of it as a massive, deep cognitive reservoir containing what they call karmic seeds, or bīja, as well as your memories, habits, and emotional tendencies. According to this 1,500-year-old tradition, these seeds have been accumulating over countless lifetimes, and they directly filter and shape how the world is appearing to you at this very moment.
Fast forward again, and cognitive scientists use a totally different term to describe the exact same mechanism. They call them Bayesian priors. These priors represent all of your accumulated knowledge, all your expectations, and the learned statistical regularities you've picked up from previous experiences. Now, while modern science limits this to your present lifetime rather than, countless past lives, the fundamental architecture is identical. In both of these systems, your past experience directly creates your present perception.
So let's systematically walk through how this happens. It's basically a four-step loop. Step 1, you have your past experiences ready to go, those priors or karmic seeds. Step 2, you get some ambiguous, messy, incoming sensory data from the outside world. Step 3, your brain instantly smashes those priors and sensory data together to make its best prediction. And Step 4, that prediction literally becomes your constructed reality. It's exactly why you might wake up in the dark, see a coat hanging on a chair, and for a split second, your heart drops because you think it's an intruder. Your brain expected a threat based on a prior fear, and it constructed that reality for you. You are experiencing your brain's expectations just as much as you're experiencing the actual world.
Section 3. A controlled hallucination, the construct of consciousness.
Because if your brain is constantly just guessing what's out there based on past data, it leads us to a massive, staggering revelation. Perception is a controlled hallucination constrained by sensory evidence. You are, in a very literal sense, hallucinating all the time. Your brain predicts what it expects to encounter, and it only fixes those predictions when it gets prediction errors, basically when the sensory evidence just totally contradicts the guess. And guess what?
Yogācāra teaches something strikingly similar. They say the world we normally experience is shaped by projections of consciousness. Things only look solid and independent because our minds overlay all these conceptual distinctions on top of raw experience. Both traditions agree for sure. We don't perceive reality as it is. We perceive it as it's interpreted by our own cognitive system.
And because of this, both frameworks insist on this incredible idea that the subject and the object co-arise. In Yogācāra, there's no such thing as an independent observer standing outside of the experience looking in. You and the world you see arise together within consciousness. Predictive processing views it the exact same way. Perception is an interaction between your internal generative model and the sensory input. The observer and the observed are not independent things. They're completely inseparable aspects of one dynamic, flowing process. In short, you're not just watching the universe, you are actively participating in creating how it appears.
Section 4. Meditation as Model Updating, Hacking the Predictive Brain. So, if our reality is just a constructed prediction built on past seeds and priors, are we just trapped in this hallucination forever? Well, not exactly. This is where ancient spiritual practices act as literal biohacks for our predictive brains. In Bayesian learning, the brain gradually updates its inaccurate internal models whenever it runs into those prediction errors. In Yogācāra, meditation does this intentionally. Practices like shamatha, which is a state of calm abiding, and vipassana, which is deep insight, actively reduce our conceptual projections. They systematically weaken those habitual patterns and karmic seeds. Basically, by just sitting and observing your mind, you're intentionally exposing your brain's prediction errors, refining your internal models until your perception is no longer distorted by things like attachment, aversion, or ignorance.
And all of this hard work culminates in something Yogācāra calls ashraya parivrtti, which translates to the transformation of the basis. This is the ultimate goal of the whole practice. It is the moment your storehouse consciousness is completely purified. Those deeply ingrained, distorted models of reality that have been running your controlled hallucination, they are finally replaced by direct wisdom. You're no longer projecting your own biases onto the world. You are finally, truly perceiving things without the filter of your past.
Section 5. The Ultimate Difference, Science versus Liberation. And this brilliantly illustrates where these two traditions eventually diverge. While the parallels are absolutely incredible, they do have very different ultimate goals. Notice how Bayesian science is aiming for a descriptive, neutral model. It just wants to map the brain and explain how perception functions in this present life. But Yogācāra, it's highly transformative. It integrates ethics and karma to actively eliminate suffering and reach awakening. It doesn't just ask how the mind constructs experience, it asks why those constructions cause us so much pain in the first place, and how we can achieve true liberation from them across multiple lifetimes.
But to sum it all up, the overlapping takeaways from this incredible interdisciplinary dialogue are profound. Ancient Buddhist philosophers perfectly anticipated modern neuroscience. They both emphatically agree that perception is actively constructed, not passively received. They agree your experience heavily depends on your prior conditioning and expectations. Conscious experience is totally dynamic and updating in real time. And maybe most importantly, cognitive training, whether you want to call it Bayesian model updating or just meditation, can fundamentally transform your perception of reality.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a profound thought to chew on today. Look around you right now, knowing that what you're seeing is quite literally a prediction built from your own history. How are your past seeds constructing the reality you are experiencing in this exact moment? What outdated priors are secretly shaping your biases, your fears, and your desires? And more importantly, what are you going to do to rewrite that internal code and finally see the world with clear wisdom? Thanks for exploring this with us on The Explainer. We'll catch you next time.